is any kind of connection to the big Bitcoin miners, companies, or people who have already engagement in that kind of Bitcoin production, they instantly will freeze all the assets, they instantly will close all the accounts, and they instantly will freeze all the deposit. These are very interesting facts about Bitcoin now, as the government of China is forbidding the Bitcoin. But the question is here, the market is cracking down because the performance, the production is going down. This is the first one. The second one is, you need to ask yourself, in near and midterm future, which kind of effect will it have on Bitcoin? Because this is about the bid and ask strategy. Ask is increasing because there are less or nearly no Bitcoins anymore, but the number of people who are looking for Bitcoin is increasing. So more people want less Bitcoin, right? If you take this, let's say these are cryptocurrencies, right? Like this one, this is let's say Ethereum, this is Bitcoin, and you have in the past time many, now you have only one. But the number of people who want to have this one is increasing, become bigger, and bigger. What do you think? What will next happen? China's central bank announcement comes amidst China's wider efforts to crack down on the crypto space, specifically through the mining industry. In May of this year, Bitcoin crashed by 12%, when a financial committee in China included Bitcoin mining in a laundry list of activities that posed a plethora of financial risks. It is necessary to maintain smooth operation of the stock, debt, foreign exchange markets, severely crack down on illegal security activities, taxing payments, severely punish illegal financial activities and other kinds of activities that are common. But the Chinese government at this time cracked down all of that. That was the first time the State Council specifically spoke out against Bitcoin mining. And since then, the situation has not been improved for the China's miners. Last week, in my last video, in Sichuan, province of China and Bitcoin miners, Bitcoin was manned and mining was manned, the industry was cracked down. We had cutting off yet another popular mining province from the industry, joining a list of provinces that include Zhejiang and now in Mongolia. So if you look on the map beside of me, we see that the mining industry has been already developed, and the China government told to the people if they want to produce Bitcoin, they need to go outside of the country. But during the last years, investigate and research in how many countries China has its kraken. In Africa, currently in Iran, in Iraq, and in many other regions, they are working with China. China has already official projects and official plannings supporting financially all those governments, unstable governments, and favorably totalitarian governments to build massive Bitcoin mines. Iran is currently one of the most unstable regions. We had the presidency in Iran, which is very questionable. On one side, millions of people are reporting no one has been taking part in the elections. On the other side, some media, some newspapers are reporting they have an official president congratulating him. But fact is that Iran from many years is building its regime supported by China's regime. And in the middle of Iran, near of Isfahan, there are big Bitcoin farms planned, and building projects are at force. And this is a signal for Bitcoin miners. Look at these regions now. Because there you can develop your illegal activities. Maybe it is one kind of interpretation, not my own opinion, but it's free to have any kind of interpretations. On the other side, these countries which have currently very low cost, we know that industrial water consumption places strain on the world's limited water supply, of course. In fact, agriculture and its industrial sectors account for approximately 90% of direct water withdrawals. And this brings us to the next analysis. The Water Resources Group, an arm of the World Bank, for example, says that water demand is expected to exceed current supply by 40% by 2030. It's not too far away, just 10 years away from now. Competition between communities and also countries for scarce water resources is increasing, especially as climate change is exacerbating and its risks and unpredictable activities. Water scarcity is on the other side also caused by water resource and mismanagement. So which industry, for example, consumes the most water? There are some, the first one is fruit and vegetable farming, for example, of course. Also meat farming is often targeted as the most intensive sector for energy, and carbon is actually lower on the list compared to grain, fruit and vegetable farming, which are now the dirtiest crops. Well, one of them is wheat, the other one is, for example, corn, then of course rice, cotton, already sugar markets or sugar cane, and the next sector is garments and textiles. The garment and textile industry is one of the most water intensive industries in the world. In fact, creating a single pair of jeans of your clothes requires close to 7,600 liters of water. Water is primarily used for the fabric dyeing process as well as wet processing on the same time. The next sector is meat production. The industrial meat production complex uses a lot of water, and almost a third of the water footprint of total agricultural production. So the food what we are consuming is consuming a lot of water. Then we have beverage industry. The beverage sector produces, for example, juices, sodas, beers, and a range of other drink, along with the water required in the liquids themselves. The additives add a water-intensive agricultural aspect that the industry requires farmed products such as barley, sugar, coffee, fruit, grains, and so on. And according to the Water Footprint Network, it takes between 680 to 1,241 liters to produce a 2-liter bottle of soda. You have to imagine it. 75 liters of water to make a pint of beer. It takes 140 liters of water to produce the ingredients to make a single cup of coffee. We have also automotive manufacturing sector, what takes a staggering of 140,000 liters to produce the average domestic vehicle. In the automotive industry, major water use occurs in surface treatment and coating, for example. Painting, paint spray booths, washing, rinsing, hosing, cooling, air conditioning systems. And all these are consuming a lot of water. Then we have boilers. The question is now, how can industries reduce water consumption? We need smart technology, we need irrigation management, including sensor technology and satellite imagery to identify where water is needed and where water is being wasted. And the fact is, we are wasting water. Better supply chain production and procurement, and also management, such as choosing suppliers and farmers that use sustainable agricultural practices. And this is a step to the modern future, committing to clean and return water to the environment, utilizing nature ecosystems for water resource management. How does, for example, England's water consumption compare with the rest of the world? Nobody's asking that, but that could be maybe an interesting setup. According to the National Water Footprint accounts, these are the top 10 water using countries around the world. I think I have here a picture. China, for example, 1.5 billion people, 362 trillion gallons annually. United States, 300 million people, 216 trillion gallons. Brazil, 175 million people, 95 trillion gallons. In Asia, Russia, 143 million people, 71 trillion gallons. Mexico, 100 million people, 53 trillion gallons. India, 1.1 billion people, only, and 30 trillion gallons. England, 60 million people, 20 trillion gallons. France, 60 million people, 20 trillion gallons. Canada, 33 million people, 19 trillion gallons. Australia, 20 million people, 12 trillion gallons. Ask yourself how your business can start saving water. Saving water starts by having an effective water management strategy into place. Many businesses choose to outsource to expert water consultants to identify and implement saving efficiencies. Our Smarter Business Water, for example, is on hand to get you started on your water saving journey. And we can also help you save on business water rates by walking you through the process of switching suppliers on one side for a cheaper deal on the other side. So it shall be a win-win situation. Who are now the most water intensive semiconductor companies, and why is Intel share price declining and falling? That's the next important question, and maybe you need to take a renew and to go back in mind. We need for the future people who are building ecosystems and who are getting engaged to protect the most valuable and the most important good for humans, nature, and our planet to live. And after oxygen, it is water, much more important than ever before. This year's theme for World Water Day is wasting of water, or waste war. It was aptly chosen given the United Nations prediction of 55% increase in global water demand by 2050 compared to 2000. To meet this demand, companies will need to manage waste water far more efficiently than they do today. We hope so, because the risk of failing to do so becomes concrete when you look at the water intensive industry, such as semiconductors, like Intel, for example, or AMD, or the miners industry. Semiconductors are essential components in technology products, including computers, including smartphones, microchips, and so on. The demand for chips is going to increase with the wide adoption of solar energy and connected devices. Think about Bitcoin. Semiconductor manufacturing, however, requires large volumes of ultra pure water to avoid the contamination of electronic devices. A typical semiconductor manufacturing facility uses, for example, 2 to 4 million gallons of ultra pure water per day. In 2015, Intel, the largest semiconductor company by market capitalization, used 9 billion gallons of water. Given the water intensity of these companies, showing now what good stewardship will be vital to managing water-related business risks. That's the reason a lot of people are against Bitcoins. The manufacturing of semiconductors generates wastewater that contains heavy metals, and toxic solvents too, due to the hazardous nature of these liquids, for example. Semiconductor companies historically have incurred cleanup costs related to groundwater contamination of up to 100 million US dollar. Regulators have also shut down facilities for releasing untreated effluents. On the other hand, some companies are proactively meeting these challenges and mitigating related risks by reducing their reliance on chemicals and proactively improving the treatment of water before discharge. The semiconductors or semi-electronics, for example, STM, recycled and reused 45% of the total water it withdrew in 2015 on one hand. Marketing technology to install on-site fluoride waste treatment facilities. We have to look on this several semiconductor facilities who are situated in arid regions, one, and it is here where the tension between the needs of industry and the community will be most acute. This is especially true where there is an economic driver to attract jobs and investment. What's good for economy. But showing good stewardship is essential too to maintaining goodwill with regulators and local populations. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC, for example, is an example of a company that proactively managed community relations. During the 2015 drought, the Taiwanese government imposed water restrictions, prompting concerns from the public regarding water use in the semiconductor industry. To alleviate these concerns, TSMC conducted a media tour to explain its water conservation efforts. Intel is another example of a good water steward that reduced water use or usement in an arid region. In 2015, the company reduced water withdrawal at its facility in Rio Rancho, New Mexico, by about 40 to 45% compared to 2010. Transparency is another important element of being a good steward. However, disclosure on water use remains poor and incoherent. I'm talking now about the most of semiconductors, not the industry. No industry standards for reporting on water use, making it difficult to assess the efforts of individual companies. Intel is an industry leader in disclosing water usage and reports on use by location with real-time data on its website on one hand. With the changing climate, water risks are likely to escalate in many regions, which could trigger stricter regulations by the governments, for example, on water efficiency and discharge, and it's good. It's yet to be seen if the semiconductor industry can efficiently manage this risk, and that's what we are looking for.